Myanmar's Shan state, a region known for its stunning landscapes and diverse ethnicities, has become a battleground once more. Decades-old tensions between ethnic armed groups in the Myanmar military, known as the Tatmadaw, have flared up with renewed intensity. This resurgence of violence threatens to unravel the fragile peace that had been painstakingly built in recent years. At the heart of the conflict lie deep-seated grievances over land, resources, and political representation. Ethnic minorities in Shan state, such as the Shan, Kachin, Taang, and Pa'o, have long felt marginalized by the central government. They accuse the Tatmadaw of perpetrating human rights abuses, land grabbing, and denying them basic freedoms. Adding fuel to the fire are the actions of the Tatmadaw itself. The February 2021 coup, which ousted the democratically elected government, has plunged Myanmar into chaos. The junta's brutal crackdown on dissent has reignited armed resistance across the country, including in Shan state. The consequences of this escalating conflict are devastating. Civilians bear the brunt of the violence, caught in the crossfire between armed groups. Thousands have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in makeshift camps, or across the border in Thailand. The humanitarian situation is dire, with limited access to food, water, and medical care. The conflict in Shan state is further complicated by a complex web of alliances and rivalries among the various armed groups operating in the region. These groups, often with overlapping territorial claims and competing political agendas, engage in shifting alliances of convenience, making the conflict even more volatile and unpredictable. Two of the most prominent groups are the Restoration Council of Shan State Army South, RCSS/SSAS, and the Shan State Progress Party, Shan State Army North, SSPP/SSAN. While both groups share the goal of greater autonomy for the Shan people, they have clashed over territory and resources. The recent fighting between them highlights the fragility of any unity among ethnic armed groups. Adding another layer of complexity is the involvement of the United Wa State Army, UWSA. The UWSA, Myanmar's largest ethnic armed group, controls a self-administered territory along the border with China. While officially neutral in the conflict between the RCSS and SSPP, the UWSA has reportedly provided support to both sides at different times. This tangled web of alliances and rivalries makes it difficult to find a lasting solution to the conflict. Peace agreements are often short-lived, as shifting alliances and power struggles lead to renewed fighting. The lack of trust between the different actors, coupled with the absence of a unified negotiating front, poses a significant challenge to any peace process. Looming over the conflict in Shan state is the shadow of China. As Myanmar's northern neighbor, China has a vested interest in maintaining stability along its border. Beijing is wary of the conflict spilling over into its territory, potentially disrupting trade and fueling an influx of refugees. China has long-standing relationships with many of the ethnic armed groups operating in Shan state, including the UWSA. These relationships are often transactional, based on shared economic interests and a desire to counter Western influence in the region. However, China's influence over these groups is not absolute, and Beijing has struggled to control the escalating violence. On the one hand, China has called for dialogue and a peaceful resolution to the conflict. It has hosted talks between the Myanmar government and ethnic armed groups, urging them to find common ground. On the other hand, China has been accused of turning a blind eye to the Tatmadaw's human rights abuses and even providing arms and support to some ethnic armed groups. This delicate balancing act reflects China's own strategic interests. While it desires stability, it is also keen to maintain its influence over Myanmar and counter Western efforts to isolate the junta. As a result, China is likely to continue its pragmatic approach, engaging with both the Tatmadaw and ethnic armed groups while seeking to prevent the conflict from spiraling out of control. In the midst of the chaos and uncertainty, a new player has emerged on the political scene in Shan state. The Shan State Front for Federal, SSFF. Formed in August 2022, the SSFF brings together several Shan political parties and armed groups, including the RCSS/SSAS. The SSFF's primary goal is to establish a federal democratic union in Myanmar, where ethnic states like Shan state have greater autonomy and control over their own affairs. They argue that the current centralized system of government, dominated by the Bamar ethnic majority, is inherently discriminatory and has led to decades of conflict and oppression. The emergence of the SSFF reflects a growing desire among ethnic groups in Shan State for self-determination and a rejection of the military junta's rule. The SSFF has called for dialogue with the junta and other ethnic armed groups to find a peaceful solution to the conflict. However, they have also stated their willingness to fight for their rights if necessary. The SSFF's emergence adds a new layer of complexity to the already intricate political landscape in Shan State. It remains to be seen what impact they will have on the conflict and whether they can unite the various Shan factions under a common banner. Their success or failure will depend on their ability to navigate the complex web of alliances and rivalries, as well as their ability to garner support from the international community.